The first time I saw the house on Willow Lane, I was 26, newly married, and 8 weeks pregnant with Claire. Harold carried me over the threshold like we were in some old movie, both of us laughing because the mortgage papers were still warm from the notary. "Welcome home, Eleanor," he said, kissing sawdust off my cheek. That was 1969. The house cost $19,400. We paid it off in 23 years, 2 months, and 11 days. I remember because I kept the cancelled mortgage in a showbox with the hospital bracelet from Claire's birth and Harold's dog tags. 54 years later, on a grey Tuesday in March, my daughter Claire told me the house was no longer mine. "You're moving, Mom," she announced over tea that tasted like cardboard. We found a lovely assisted living cottage in Shady Pines. 1 bedroom, no stays, meals included. "You'll be safer." She said safer the way people say cancer. Soft, final, impossible to argue with. I set my cup down carefully. "I'm not going anywhere, Claire." Her husband Martin smiled the thin, patient smile he used when he thought I was being difficult. "Eleanor, the house is too big. Taxes, upkeep, the roof alone." "I paid the taxes in February," I said. "And the roof is fine." Claire sighed the sigh she had perfected at 12 when I refused to buy her a second pony. "Mom, we're not asking." They left an hour later with brochures and a calendar marked Move Day in red. I sat in Harold's old chair until the streetlights came on, listening to the house settle around me the way it had every night for half a century. The radiator ticked. The grandfather clock coughed once and kept perfect time. Nothing felt unsafe. 3 weeks later the locksmith changed the locks while I was at the library. I came home with 3 new mysteries and a carton of milk to find my key useless. Claire opened the door wearing latex gloves and the expression of someone doing a distasteful but necessary chore. "What is this?" I asked. "Intervention," Martin said from the hallway, arms folded like a bouncer. Boxes labeled Eleanor, bedroom lined the wall. My books, my photographs, my mother's china, already packed. I looked at my daughter. "You can't just throw me out of my own house." Claire's mouth tightened. "Actually, Mom, we can. The deed is in our names. Dad put it there years ago for estate planning. You've been living here rent-free out of the goodness of our hearts." I felt the floor tilt the way it does before you faint, only I didn't faint. I stood very still and listened to the house breathing around us, waiting for Harold to walk in and tell them they were wrong. But Harold had been dead for 12 years, and the house, it turned out, had never legally belonged to me at all. That night I slept, or pretended to, in the guest room that used to be Claire's. My own bedroom door was locked for packing. I lay awake counting the cracks in the ceiling I had memorized as a young mother rocking colicky babies. At 3:17 a.m. I got up, found the old address book in my purse, and dialed a number I hadn't called in 31 years. A sleepy voice answered. "Hello. Nathaniel." I said. "It's Aunt Eleanor." There was a pause long enough for the past to walk in and sit on the bed. "Aunt Ellie," he whispered, as though saying my name might wake a ghost. "My God, it's really you." Nathaniel Brooks was Harold's nephew, the quiet, serious boy who used to spend summers with us when his parents were overseas with the State Department. He built model clipper ships in our garage and followed me around the garden asking the Latin names of flowers. When he was 17, his father was transferred to Singapore and Nathaniel never came back. Christmas cards thinned, then stopped. I assumed life had simply carried him away the way it does. "I need a favor," I told him at 3:30 in the morning. "A very strange favor." He listened without interrupting while I explained about the locks, the boxes, the deed that apparently had never had my name on it. When I finished, there was only the sound of his breathing. "I'll be there tomorrow," he said. "Don't sign anything. Don't let them move you." I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks, the possibility that the story might not end the way Claire had written it. Nathaniel arrived at 9:42 the next morning driving a dusty silver Subaru and wearing the same wire-rimmed glasses I remembered from 1992. He was 50 now, lean and grey at the temples, carrying a leather briefcase that looked expensive and out of place against our peeling porch. Claire opened the door ready for battle, but the fight went out of her the moment she saw him. "Nate," she said, the childhood nickname slipping out before she could stop it. "Hello, Claire." His voice was quiet, polite, lethal. "May I come in?" Martin tried bluster. "This is a family matter." "Actually," Nathaniel said, opening the briefcase, "it's a legal matter. And I believe this belongs to you, Aunt Ellie." He handed me a folder. Inside was the original deed to 127 Willow Lane, dated September 12, 1969. The buyers' names, Harold James Brooks and Nathaniel James Brooks, a minor, held in trust. My name was nowhere. I looked up at him. You've owned half this house since you were 12. He gave a small, sad smile. Uncle Harold never told you. Claire snatched the deed. This is ridiculous. Dad would never. Dad did, Nathaniel said gently. He was worried about inheritance tax if something happened to both of you. He put my name on as a safeguard. I have the trust documents, the amendment he filed in 1981 making me sole executor if Aunt Ellie ever needed protection. And he produced another sheet. A letter he wrote me the week before he died asking me to watch over you if Claire ever, well, if she ever forgot what family means. Martin's face had gone the color of spoiled milk. Claire looked as though someone had punched her in the stomach. I found my voice. You knew, I said to Nathaniel. All these years, you knew this house was half yours. I knew it was yours, he corrected. I never wanted it. I just wanted you safe. Claire tried to regroup. Fine. You own half. Congratulations. Mom still can't manage on her own, and half a house doesn't change. Actually, Nathaniel said, producing yet another document, the trust gives me full authority to void any transfer attempted without my co-signature. The moment you recorded that quitclaim deed putting the property in your names alone, you committed fraud. Martin started shouting about lawyers. Nathaniel waited until he ran out of air. I am a lawyer, he said quietly. Marine environmental law, but fraud is fraud. Claire turned to me, eyes bright with tears that looked suspiciously like rage. Mom, you can't seriously side with him. He's practically a stranger. I looked at my daughter, at the woman who had packed my life into cardboard while I was buying milk, and felt something inside me snap neatly in two, the way a dry branch breaks in winter. No, Claire, I said. You're the stranger here. That afternoon Nathaniel helped me carry my own boxes back upstairs. We opened windows, aired out rooms that smelled of betrayal, and drank tea on the porch like nothing had happened. He told me about his life, research vessel out of Woods Hole, divorced 10 years, no children, a cat named Kelvin. He spoke of Harold with love that made my throat ache. Why didn't you ever visit? I asked. He looked out at the maple trees we had planted the year he was 15. I was ashamed. My father made it clear your daughter didn't want strays around after I left for college. I thought distance was kindness. I reached over and took his hand. It was calloused from hauling equipment, warm like Harold's had been. You're home now, I said. Over the next weeks the house settled back around me the way a favorite coat settles around your shoulders. Nathaniel stayed in the guest room temporarily. Temporary became May, became June. He fixed the porch step that had wobbled for a decade. I taught him to make Harold's sourdough. We argued over whose turn it was to mow the lawn and discovered we both hated jazz after 10 p.m. Claire and Martin hired a lawyer who sent increasingly frantic letters. Nathaniel answered each one on heavy cream stationery that made their threats look childish. In July, the district attorney opened an investigation into elder financial abuse. Claire stopped answering my calls. One evening in August, Nathaniel found me in the garden pulling weeds with more force than necessary. I have a confession, he said, kneeling beside me. I braced myself. I don't want to go back to my apartment in Boston, he said. I like waking up to your terrible coffee. I like hearing you sing off-key to the radio. I like belonging somewhere again. I sat back on my heels, earth under my fingernails, heart suddenly too large for my chest. This house is half yours, I said. Stay. He smiled the way he had at 12 when I let him name the goldfish. Only if you let me pay rent. Only if you let me spoil you rotten. We shook on it, dirt and all. September brought a letter from Claire, handwritten, a novelty. She was sorry, sort of. The cottage at Shady Pines had been a mistake. Could we talk? I read it twice, folded it neatly, and used it to start the fireplace that night. Nathaniel didn't say a word. He simply poured me a glass of the good red wine we saved for celebrations. In October the charges were formally filed: forgery, elder abuse, attempted unlawful eviction. Claire and Martin lawyered up again, but their savings were gone and the evidence was overwhelming. The quitclaim deed, the forged power of attorney, the bank transfers they thought I'd never notice, every thread unraveled. On the morning of the settlement conference, Nathaniel drove me to court. I wore the navy suit I'd bought for Harold's retirement party 30 years ago. It still fit. Claire looked thin and furious. Martin wouldn't meet my eyes. Their lawyer made one last offer. They would drop all claims if I agreed not to testify. I stood up before Nathaniel could answer. No, I said clearly. The courtroom was so quiet I heard the stenographer's pen stop moving. You tried to erase me from my own life. You don't get to walk away because it's inconvenient now. The judge, an elegant woman with no patience for nonsense, looked at Claire over her glasses. Mrs. Lang, your mother is competent, articulate, and furious. I suggest you listen to her. They pleaded guilty to reduced charges. Probation, restitution, permanent no-contact order. As the gavel fell, I felt nothing like triumph, only a vast, quiet grief for the daughter I thought I'd raised. Afterward, Nathaniel took me for coffee at the place on the corner that used to be a pharmacy when he was a boy. We sat outside under the awning and watched leaves skitter down the sidewalk. I keep waiting to feel happy, I said. You will, he promised. It just takes longer when it's family. Winter came early that year. Nathaniel and I decorated the big fur in the living room the way Harold and I always had. Popcorn strings, the wonky angel Claire made in second grade that I could never bring myself to throw away. On Christmas Eve, we video-called Nathaniel's colleagues in Antarctica. They toasted us with hot chocolate and called me Captain Eleanor. I laughed until I cried. In January, the library board asked if I'd consider coming back part-time to run the children's reading hour. I said yes before they finished the sentence. Children smell like hope and glue sticks, and I discovered I still had plenty to give. One night in February, snow piling against the windows, Nathaniel found me in Harold's study holding the cancelled mortgage from 1992. I always thought this was the proudest thing I owned, I said. He sat beside me. What is now? I thought about it. The house breathing around us. The sound of Nathaniel humming off-key in the kitchen. The children who now called me Miss Ellie and fought over who got to turn the pages of the big picture books. This, I said, gesturing at the lamplight, the snow, the quiet. This life we didn't plan but somehow earned anyway. He rested his head on my shoulder the way he had when he was 15 and heartbroken over his first love. I think Uncle Harold would approve, he said. I kissed the top of his grey hair. I think he's laughing his head off somewhere, delighted we finally figured it out. Outside, snow kept falling, soft and deliberate, covering the world in forgiveness we no longer needed to give away for free. The house on Willow Lane never went on the market. The locks were never changed again without my permission. And every spring, when the maples bud red, I hang a new bird feeder on the porch and watch Nathaniel pretend he isn't allergic to pollen while he fills it to the brim. Some inheritances aren't written in wills. Some are written in the quiet mornings when you wake up and realize the people who choose to stay are the truest family you'll ever have. And some houses, some hearts, are big enough to hold second chances you never expected, for as long as you both shall live.